Hi, I'm Chris Fenning, and I help people communicate better at work in everyday situations. If you could be 1 to 5% more effective in your comms, how much easier would your job be? And I spend my time writing and teaching to help people achieve that.
Why did you end up here?
Well,
Some early life crisis, or some feedback from a teacher? What gets you to this passion of yours?
My early life crisis was a complete lack of awareness of how badly I communicated. I believed that talking a lot meant good communication, and boy, was I wrong. Really,
That
really
that
wrong on that.
that is often the reason that people end up in sales. Oh, you talk a lot, you should be in sales. And it's like,
And yet, ironically, salespeople should listen more than they talk. So there's
indeed,
no wonder was it 85% of salespeople don't meet their targets.
yes.
So how did I get into this? Well, I had 20 something years in quite a varied career around the world, living and working in 30 different countries, or living in 3 different countries, working in 30 different countries, 6 different industries. And the consistent thing that I had in all those roles was my ability to speak technical and business at any level of the organization. And I started off not very good at that, but quickly developed that skill. My background's engineering, so I had the technical side, but I thought like a business person. And being able to translate between them was something that I had as a skill all the way through.
And so what sort of jobs were you doing?
I started off as a designer in a defense company. I spent a little while doing missile testing. And then in the UK defense, I moved into telecoms as a customer experience tester. We design experiments, sort of A/B testing, but on a corporate level to see what would work best for the customers. I worked for a web hosting company, and a health insurance company, a travel business. I had a number of my own businesses, including a sports equipment company. And one of the biggest development in communication for me was working for France Telecom and Orange, a telco in the UK, which is now everything everywhere, and being flown around the world to tell their providers where they were failing. And I was a mid-20-something-year-old traveling around the world with grey-haired VPs to go and tell senior VPs at Samsung and Huawei that their products weren't good enough, and then how we could work together to improve it. So being able to deliver the bad news and
Uh-huh.
in a technical environment to a business audience, I got almost a baptism of fire in doing that and learned a lot. I was very lucky that I had a good sort of core skill set in it, but learned a lot as I went along and just took those skills with me across those different industries.
And so I'm still like, how do you then end up going from that into what you do now?
Yeah, a big burnout crisis and a continent move with my family. So
Okay.
I peaked in my career, in my employed career before I do what I do now, as someone who led mergers and acquisitions and joint ventures and was sort of a firefighter for a very large company in the US. And
Uh-huh.
I'd be talking to the executive teams weekly about stuff that was going wrong. I got recognized within the company as someone who could communicate at any level on any topic on very short notice. And people started asking me to teach them. Started with people in my team, then the rest of my department. And it culminated with I taught a 300-person department that I had no connection with in a totally different part of this organization. And they wanted me to teach them how to give executive updates in a way that
Uh-huh.
was clear, concise, and relevant. So I did that. And as I came out of that session, my best friend came up and said, "You need to teach this. And if you don't, I'm going to come and whack you around the head every day until you do." Which he did. He literally did until I started on this path. And that came at the same time as my wife, my young daughter at the time, I had a 3-year-old at the time. We lived in America. We wanted to move back to the UK to be
Uh-huh.
closer to our families. And I had some health challenges that meant I couldn't keep working the 68-hour, 80-hour weeks that I was working at the time. So wanting to leave the environment I was in and go it alone, then the topic was a natural fit because it was the thing people were asking me to teach them anyway.
Yeah. Sometimes people who are good at a thing naturally, like there's a sort of story, I can't remember is it Malcolm Gladwell maybe, but if you ask a tennis player how they do a backhand topspin lob and they describe what they do, or even you get the coach to describe what they do and then you watch the video, the two things are completely different. So often people who are naturally gifted, and obviously it's probably a natural gift, you just found yourself doing this all the time. Often they find it hard to teach people what they do because they don't even know what they're doing. So how did you end up turning this into something that you could replicate?
By learning and practicing and deliberately taking a careful approach to making this transition. So while I was teaching within my previous job, I was running a project team, running an IT department for a while. During that time, I was being asked to teach, but knew I didn't do it very well. So I took courses on how to teach stuff. I also had some background in coaching. I used to shoot rifle shooting competitively in the UK. And
Okay.
I used to teach that. So I'd had training courses, coaching programs, weeks and weeks and weeks of development for me to be a better coach, which helped.
Right.
But then when I made this shift, when I said, okay, I'm going all in, leaving employed work and going by myself, I said, I'm going to take a year to learn how to do my new job.
Okay.
And I spent a year building my own skill set to a basic level, because even a year isn't a lot. And I said, right, what do I need to do to run my own business, to be an entrepreneur, solopreneur, to be a writer, and to teach? So I had to develop myself. Otherwise, I'd have been exactly as you say, someone saying, oh, this is how you do it, but not actually conveying something useful or meaningful to the other people. So I went back to school, went back to basics, and made sure that I was going to be good at the job I was about to start.
And so have you adopted other people's methodologies, designed your own? What's the...
Yeah, bit of both. So the things that I teach are things that most other people don't teach. So within the realm of communication skills, I don't teach public speaking, active listening, or public listening, that too. I don't teach those commonly held, or sort of the poster child is public speaking. Everyone talks about body language, active listening, and so on. There are loads of people who are excellent at teaching those things. What we don't have are very many people helping technical people talk to non-technical, helping everybody be clear, concise, and get to the point. How do you summarize something? How do you give a status update to a senior leader? These are things that we do a lot, but we don't get taught how to do them. So that's where I focus. And that's where I come up with my own methods. And I borrow and learn from other people. There's a study called pragmatics. I will not geek out on that, but it's about context of communication. That played a big part in developing one of my models. But for everything else, I point at and reference and use other experts.
I was just laughing as you were talking because we've done a few projects this year helping clients hire chief revenue officers, senior sales leaders. And if you would think one of the skills that people who are good at sales have, you would think, would be that ability to ask what seems to be a simple question concisely. And I'm just thinking, so many times I will ask somebody what I think is a simple question, and then 10 minutes later, they're still just babbling at me. And I'm thinking, I have to say, let me stop you there. I'm going to lose the fucking will to live. Like, oh God, you're not the candidate I thought you were going to be. And also we work with and have historically worked with a load of tech founders who, just are convinced that if they build a better mousetrap, they don't, maybe they don't need sales. And they're, the depth which, you give them an inch, and the depth with which they will go and the length with which they will start to talk about the technology, not its benefits, but just the technology. So definitely.
People love to talk about how. It's when you ask them, so how, if someone asks you how something works, what they're really asking is, how do I use it?
Yes.
Or what does it do for me? And the example that I use when I teach this is, I ask people in the room, how many of you know how a coffee machine works? And there's usually one or two people who go, well, there's a copper coil that's got some steam going through it and something else, and there's a circuit board and some things. And then someone else will stick their hand up and they'll go, you put a cup under it and press a button, coffee comes out. I'm like, that's what, that is how a coffee machine works as far as most people care.
Yeah.
So if you're presenting an idea, particularly those in the tech space, if they're presenting an idea, hey, we want to make this change in our tech stack, in our product, whatever, don't talk about the tech. Talk about what it does for the end user, whether that's benefits or just practically what the thing does. But don't talk about how, just talk about what instead.
Well, do you know what? In the same context, often we're helping clients think about their purpose. And so I'll say, why do you do what you do? And they will tell me what they do. And I'll say, no, that's, in fact, I even go so far as to tell them the answer. I say, I'm going to ask you why, and you're going to tell me what. Why do you do what you do? And then they'll just say what they do again. And I'm like, no, that's what, and I did tell you that you were going to.
Do they also drift into how? Here's what I do, and now let me tell you how I do it and how our processes or system works.
Often it's just really hard. So what, do you have, I don't know, top 3, top 5, can you describe your model in a way that would help the viewers and listeners?
There are a lot of models that I have developed and teach, but there's a couple that are relevant to anybody in any job at any level. So I think these would be the most valuable. I'll go with 2. The first is if you want to share an idea, give a status update, explain something to someone who is not an expert like you, use a 3-part system: goal, problem, solution. So this is the first model, is goal, problem, solution. The second model is relevant, relatable, simple, and jargon-free. I'll do goal, problem, solution first. Goal, problem, solution is the simplest way to give somebody a summary of whatever your topic is. I can say, hey, Dominic, we're trying to achieve our 30% sales growth this year. The problem is we've got a new competitor in our main market, and they're taking up a good portion of the sales that we wanted. What I propose we do is blah, blah, blah. And then you can talk about your solution. That sets up the audience for where you're trying to go, the problem you're trying to solve for, and they're ready to listen to whatever your solution is. And if this was a status update, and you'd come along and said, hey, Chris, where are we on this piece of work? I'd say, well, Dominic, what we're trying to do is deliver this new piece of software release by next Friday. Problem is our head developer is out sick at the moment. So what we've done is X, Y, and Z, and we will still deliver on Friday. I haven't said that laundry list of tasks that have happened since the last time we were there. I haven't delved way down into a particular problem, and I've not mentioned a single thing about a single line of code, but I've given you an update for where we are on that piece of work.
Why are we so obsessed? Because the way you describe that is a challenge that we have all the time when we're thinking about using something like objectives and key results, OKRs. Often what people do is they turn up and you sort of say, like, give me a status update. And they just tell, the meeting consists of 20 minutes of them saying what they have done.
Here's the work I did. Yeah.
Let me prove to you that I'm busy. And then let me tell you why I haven't done the thing I said I was going to do. and that tends to be, it's what I had Andrew McAfee, who wrote a book called The Geek Way, on the show. And he said the executive team are all members of the Liars Club. And so all of this is that they're all busy and they're all, nobody's going to give each other a hard time about their lack of performance, lest the light be shined on them. And so he said they all say they want to be a high-performing team, but they don't really, because there is comfort in being a bit mediocre.
Yeah, there is comfort in that. There's safety in it. And we're never taught how to be anything else. We go to work and it's assumed that we can do the fundamentals: run a meeting, write a good email, give a good update. But when do we ever get taught that? We just get thrown into the workplace. And the higher you go, the bigger the consequences of screwing up. So admitting that something isn't going well is is my job on the line? Is my personal reputation on the line? If you're someone who your role is to shield a team, am I doing an adequate job of shielding my team if I air our dirty laundry in the updates? So fear is a big reason why status updates tend to just be laundry lists. And also, we're just not taught how to do it. But the most valuable updates are the ones that are future looking. Where are we in relation to what we're trying to achieve? Not where are we in terms of looking in the rearview mirror.
I think fear has a big. I often compare and contrast the behaviour of my 8-year-old and 10-year-old daughters, right, with what I see in the workplace. Because it's like, how did the playroom get to be such a mess? They immediately start with, "It wasn't me." Right.
Oh no.
What's the status update? It's like, oh my God, I have bad news. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try and filibuster my way through this. I'm just going to say what we've done. And so I think instinctively it's that sort of fear and blaming others and not being responsible. And, that's a natural thing. And then we're not taught to do anything differently. Certainly at school or in the workplace. I was chatting to Farley Thomas, the founder and CEO at Manageable, the other day, and he said, he's on a crusade, because he said leadership skills get taught at the top, and if only we took that money and spent it at the bottom, there's a whole load of things we could transform the world of work if everyone had a great manager. But this comms. This communication stuff that you're teaching people, it's everybody.
It is, which makes it hard to sell because I don't have that focused niche. So
Yeah. Like, oh, I can train everybody. Yeah.
Yes, but it's stuff that we need. Just before we go on to that, you mentioned your daughters in the playroom and how that relates to status updates and sort of covering ourselves. There's two things I want to add to that. One is I have an almost 8-year-old, and she will then go through the long description of how it got messy. So I get to replay. I just want it tidied up, but you're taking me through the painful journey of how it got more. And it was great and exciting for her, and she felt very productive. But the cleaners are coming. I want the room. I need the Lego off the floor. So completely understand that relationship with work. And the second thing is, we miss a fantastic opportunity to demonstrate our competence and demonstrate our abilities and excellence in those situations of talking about failures and bad things. Because what happens is we say, oh, this has happened, or we tried to do this, and this is how we covered it up, or this is how we tried to mitigate it. And it's all about covering up or explaining or justifying why a thing happened.
Yeah.
If we switch to a future-focused update, say, we're trying to achieve this goal, there is a problem, here's what we're doing about it. Let me tell you how we're fixing it. Then you're giving people a great sense of, okay, it's not as dire, we're not dwelling on the problem, we're talking about solutions. You're demonstrating how you solve problems. And it's not a woe is me situation. It's here's the great stuff I or my team are doing to get around this problem and achieve the goal that we all care about. If we did that, people get to demonstrate their excellence rather than trying to cover up incompetence.
And if you don't have that psychological safety where people can feel free to share failure, then it gets covered up. And if you cover it up, you can't fix it, because then it's under the carpet.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about David Marquet, because one of the things that his second book is leadership is language, or language is leadership. But in his first book, he talks about this phrase, I intend to, that he gets the crew of the Santa Fe to use. And it's that I'm about to do a thing. I know what I need to do, and this is what I'm going to do. Now, then as opposed to the manager telling somebody to do a thing, so you own it, you have agency, and then the manager gets to be a coach. And so often the work that we're doing is, how do we help people stop giving bad news, and how do we get the bad news to come up from the bottom and then coach? Because nobody wants to give bad news, which is why, I almost every week I'm doing some coaching, and somebody says, oh God, I've got this bad news I need to deliver. And it's like, well, don't deliver it. Do you know what? The person who you think you need to give this, almost always they know that they already know this bad news. You just think they don't, but why don't you ask them how they think they're performing? But the sort of conflict and bad news stuff, you must again have a context for delivering bad news, because you said this is a thing you ended up getting paid to do. So maybe we could pick your brains on that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the first thing about bad news is It's excellent. Bad news and problems are amazing. And if for anyone thinking, oh, problems are the worst, I wish all the problems would go away, here's the reframing for that. Problems are amazing because without problems, we don't have jobs. And if you like money, you need a job. And our jobs are to solve problems. If sales happened by themselves, there wouldn't be salespeople. If NASA could put people on the moon or Mars by clicking their fingers, there'd be a lot of engineers out of a job. Problems are brilliant. We're paid to solve problems. And that reframe can help us at least appreciate why they're valuable before we get into the delivering of them. Instead of covering them up, just say, okay, there are problems, but I'm here to solve them. Let's talk about what I have done or will do to solve these particular problems. And if you're delivering bad news that impacts someone else, it's what can we do to solve this problem? Even if 99% of the work is going to be on the other person, you can still say, what will we do to solve this problem? So that's my soapbox moment about problems.
But one of your books, Effective Emails, because you were talking there about solving problems, and often certainly the conversation about AI and job loss has been around that if your value as an employee is solving problems, then you're unlikely to be replaced by AI, because that's something that AI is not good at looking at the past and coming up with something that we've done before. But if you're looking to solve a problem, understanding the problem, understanding an angle, do you think your effective emails, do you think that writing emails is a thing that gets replaced by AI? Is that?
No, I think it's a thing that gets improved by that. And I don't say that just because I want the book to keep selling. There's a wonderful cartoon that demonstrates why I don't think this is a problem. And there's two pages. Someone sat at a computer and they said, I got AI to turn my one-line update into a one-page email. And then the recipient says, I got AI to summarize this one-page email into one line. And if that's all AI is doing, then there's no value add or diminishment other than the cost of the time to do it. But here's why I don't think AI will replace writing emails. You have to tell AI your intent for the email. You write an email because you want to achieve something. I'm delivering information. I'm asking for a thing. I'm some combination of those two. You still have to tell the AI tool what you want, what the topic is, what you want the other person to do with it, give it the key information. That still takes time to type. If you take a very small amount of time and learn how to structure an email in a brief way, it takes you the same amount of time to write the email as it does to tell the AI to write the email. Because AI doesn't know your intent. It doesn't know what you want the other person to do. So just write it in the email in the first place.
Okay. What are some of the top tips in your book on email writing that people just get wrong? I mean, obviously length.
Yeah,
There is some. I think if my dyslexia gives me a superpower, it is to have always had a reputation in all the companies I've been in for the shortest emails ever. Sometimes only one. I might just want one character and press reply all. But that, it's just so painful for me to write long emails. So I've never written long emails. But often I get emails from people which are 3 pages long, and you think,
it's unnecessary. There was a study that was published in the Boston Globe around 2013 where it was a full research study. They sent emails to about 140,000 people, so good sample size. And they sent 2 emails. They split the group in half. One half of the group got an email that was 147 words. That's not long. The other half got the same beginning and end of the email, but they chopped out the middle and it was only 47 words. So 147 versus 47. The words were the same other than cutting out that middle bit. Using tracking, the response, the full read and response rate was almost double for the shorter email. Short emails are read and more likely to be responded to. And if you have a question somewhere in the middle of the 3 pages, it's lost. So there's a really good body of evidence around short emails being better. And you asked earlier for some tips. Well, the first one is keep it short as possible. Any additional description, don't include it. We're back to the stop telling me how a thing works, just tell me what the thing does. Stop telling me 17 reasons why you want to ask me a question. Just ask the question and you might get an answer. So that's the first one. The second thing is call out visually questions or actions that you want people to take. Put them on their own line, start it with the word question in uppercase, and then because we scan, humans scan text, they will pick out, whoever's reading it will see that there is a question, they'll see the word question, and psychologically we're automatically prompted to start wanting to answer it. So don't bury stuff in the middle of a paragraph, call it out on its own line and write the word question at the start. From teaching this, people said they get 3 or 4 times more answers to their questions than before they start doing this one change.
Huh. God, what else you got that gold dust like this? What?
Okay.
I love that. That is something that you can start doing immediately. And but I also just back to our earlier sort of conversation about AI. That's a thing where here's an email I've written. It's like, AI, just make this shorter, right? That's easy, right?
Yeah.
You could write a chat GPT, your own GPT, and go, when I've asked a question, and I get you to read my email before sending it, always pull out a question, put in uppercase question. You can, all of that could be automated into a GPT easily.
And that's how AI will help.
So that then it's like I just bang it all out, drop it in, then it is more impactful.
Yes. Yeah. All right, so let's stick with questions then. How often have you been sent an email and you've replied to it? Oh, actually, I'll turn this the other way. You sent someone an email with 2 or 3 questions in and they only answer one of them.
Happens all the time.
Okay.
And you're left thinking, well, I mean, I was speaking at a conference in Poland last week, and the week before, I'm thinking, I haven't had all the information I need for me to feel comfortable that it's all going to go smoothly. I'm sure it will, but let me just make sure. So I sent the organizer 3 questions, and I got a reply to one of them, and it was just like, So I just picked up the phone. I just thought I'm just going to pick up the phone, and she had no idea that she hadn't answered the other questions. She'd just seen one question. She'd sent the reply. She'd obviously read the whole thing, but in her mind, only one question had registered, and she'd done reply, and she thought she'd done it. Whereas I'm deeply frustrated, because not all 3 questions were as important. And the one that was most important was the one that she hadn't answered.
Oh, no. So that's even worse. Okay. So here's some things you could do to greatly improve the chance of getting all your questions answered. In the first line of your email, say how many questions you have. So when I've finished writing an email, I will go back to the beginning and then add in the number of questions. Or I'll start by saying, hey, Dominic, I've got 3 questions for you today on this topic. And then when I write the email, maybe I only end up with 2 or I get 4, so I have to go back and update the number. But when you start with, hey, Dominic, I've got 3 questions for you today, you're primed to look for 3 questions. And then list the questions, because they shouldn't need a huge amount of context and explanation. And if they do, you can say, I've put them below under their own headings with a little bit of extra info as to why you might need them. Mm-hmm. But the best thing to do is say how many questions you have at the start. And then if you're writing a really long email, don't. But if you feel you really have to, put those questions at the top and say, here are the 3 questions. The context and extra info about them is below. That person then has the 3 questions. They know that there's 3. They've been primed to look for 3 things. And you've got right to the point. And then when you order them, you put the most important one first.
That's very good. When should we be teaching this comms skill to people?
In school and universities. And you've heard me say this before, but schools and universities fail really badly at teaching communications, and parents do as well. We've got a responsibility although we don't have the skills in training and comms because we're all just as bad as each other. But schools and universities do very little. And I have an example. I looked at the top science, technology, engineering programs from the UK's top 10 universities in the STEM field. And out of 600 programs, there were 4 modules that included any kind of communication, and 2 of those were about technical communication technology and not about the ability to communicate with other people. Less than 1%, less than 0.5% of what is taught to science and technology, computer science, engineering undergraduates is about how to communicate. And yet when we go to work, job descriptions include in the top 5 must-have important skills, they include communication. That's a gap. I think that qualifies as a gap.
I think lots of job adverts, job descriptions are not worth the paper they're written on. And being a good communicator is perfect because nobody's going to turn up and say, I'm shit at this. And if you ask the question, are you good at it? They'll just say yes.
Yeah. And then they proceed to demonstrate through the rest of the interview that they're terrible at it.
Totally. But it's, I suppose you've got, what are we teaching kids at school? We're teaching them how to write a story. So, beginning, middle, and an end. So there's a length, not brevity. And then in the scientific world, there's a sort of format for a scientific paper.
Diagram, method, results, conclusion.
Yes.
All the good stuff's at the end.
Yes. Well, and there might be a
abstract.
Abstract, yes. But, again, it's about length, it's not about communication. It's about proving it's about what you did, like showing you're working out rather than
write a 1,000-word essay on, not write a compelling argument for. And if you can give a compelling argument in 150 words, great. Why force people to pad? That's one of the main reasons we add so much fluff in our writing, is because we've been taught good writing is 1,000 words, 1,500 words on what you did over the summer. Oh, help me.
So who are you, now that you're doing this for a living, who's your target audience? Who are you teaching and what outcomes are you delivering for them?
Well, the answer doesn't match what I expected. So I set out to teach people in technology roles how to communicate with the business, whether that's across an organization or up an organization. And what I get when people come to me is I've taught executives at Google, I've taught lawyers and finance people across Europe and the US, and I've taught interns and apprentices in all sorts of different environments. Interns at a fruit and veg transportation company. So the stuff I teach is applicable at any level in any organization. It's tweaked a little bit. Executives have a slightly different nature of their communication than interns, but that's who I help. And in terms of outcomes, I love it when people write back and say, "Oh, this was so helpful, thank you," because it's nice to know that what we do actually makes a difference. And I delivered some training on how to run better meetings, and multiple people in that company wrote to say they now have 50% fewer meetings, and those meetings are much more likely to produce what they need. That's given the fact we spend an average of something like 11 hours a week in meetings, that's a big difference for all of those people that went through that training.
Oh, if I say to an audience, have you ever wasted your life in a shit meeting? Like 100% of the people in the room put their hands up. And then if we do some sessions around what makes a great meeting, everybody is in agreement, rapid agreement about what makes a great meeting, but somehow we sit in shit meetings and don't complain or agitate for better or anything. So when you're teaching people, what are the things that you're teaching them to do differently in meetings?
Well, you've just given one great example, which is we'll all sit in a bad meeting thinking this is a bad meeting, sending a message to the person next to us going, this is a bad meeting, but doing nothing about it. So I put a visual up on the wall during the training, and I say, who is responsible for bad meetings? And there's a small circle with the meeting leader. And then it zooms out on a massive circle with everybody else in the meeting. Because we are all able to improve the meetings that we're in. And we can do it in a way that isn't rude, doesn't put our jobs at risk or make us seem like arrogant dicks. We can improve a meeting by doing some simple things. The first one is, if you get a meeting invitation and it's blank, if you're brave, hit decline. You know, that's not an invitation, it's a summons. Be in room 2 at 10 o'clock tomorrow. That's not an invitation to a meeting. But the second thing is, go back and ask for 3 things. What is the topic? What is the purpose? And what is the output we will produce? We're going to talk about Project Everest. The purpose is to review 3 ideas for how to solve a particular problem. And the output is we will pick the idea we're going to move forwards with. That is a much better start to a meeting and enables everybody in it to understand why they're there and then measure progress towards the end. Halfway through the meeting, have we reviewed 1 or 2 of the 3 options? Are we close to a decision? Those 3 things, topic, purpose, and output, will change the whole meeting and empower every single person in there to start improving the meeting. Because if you're sat in a meeting and it doesn't begin with an introduction that says, here's the topic, purpose, and output, stick your hand up. Hey, sorry, can I just check? Is it this project that we're working on? Great. And what is it we're going to produce by the end of this meeting? Thanks. Sorry if I missed it from what you said earlier. Great. I'm now clear on what we're doing. You can ask questions to get clear. And one more bit, I realize this is a run on, quite a run on answer. But if you're in a meeting and it's gone on a tangent or down a rabbit hole or has just drifted away from that topic, again, stick a hand in the air and say, hi, sorry if I'm missing something, but I can't see how what we're talking about now connects to the output we're going to produce. Can someone just join those dots for me? Or if you're bold enough and say, I'm sorry, it sounds like we've moved to a different topic. We were here to produce this output. Are we going to do something different, or can we move back to that first topic? You have the ability to bring a conversation back on track, and you can do it politely and effectively without going, you've all moved off, you're wrong, get back on topic.
Well, and one of the big things is if everyone has their laptops open and their phones on the desk, they don't do that. What they do is they just start doing their email or social media because it's easier. And so that forcing people to do something about their discomfort and take away the distractions that allow them to do something else is really powerful.
Oh yeah. Have you ever been in a meeting and someone's asked a question and the response is, oh, sorry, I was on mute. Could you repeat the question? Being on mute doesn't prevent you from hearing. It just prevents you from speaking. What you should say is, sorry, I wasn't paying attention. Can you please ask the question again?
Totally. Yes. Well, I have been on meetings where I've said, is your camera broken? And they say, no, but if I turned it on, you could tell I was doing email. And so just coughing up to the fact that I'm actually in this meeting and not paying any attention at all. And that is entirely reasonable.
And
it's
they're
just
fine,
like mind blowing.
Doing that. It's
totally mind blowing. Yeah. Anyway, Chris, let me dive in with some quick fire questions. What drives you every day?
A bright orange camper van.
Okay. What's your genius?
Simplifying things, taking a complex thing, making it simple.
Okay. What unpopular opinion do you hold?
That people shouldn't learn public speaking until they've learned some of the fundamentals.
Okay. What's the most significant risk you've taken?
Leaving employment and going alone in my own business. Yeah.
Okay. How do you measure success, not in business, but in life?
Being able to get to the end of the day and not feel stressed about what's happened or what's about to happen next. If I can find that balance between work, family, and not be carrying a big weight, that is a huge win for me.
Okay. What's the most recent thing you've learned or the most recent skill you've acquired?
I've learned how to use a chainsaw.
Right. Right.
We've got
still have all your fingers.
Yeah. Still got all my fingers, all my toes, and the voice of my father in my head going, don't ever use a chainsaw, they're dangerous.
And what were you chopping down trees in the garden?
We have a nut wood in our
Right.
in our garden. We have 50-something hazel trees, and they have to be managed. Otherwise, they grow to a point where they rot and start blowing down, and that's a problem. So they all need to be managed and cut every year, and it's a lot to do by hand. So I took a course and learned how to use a chainsaw.
I like the fact you did a course. I just went and bought a chainsaw. Much more dangerous. What's your biggest source of inspiration?
Reading things from other people who've failed, learned, and recovered from it, and then they're passing on that info. I'm inspired by their willingness to express their failures and what they learned, and I'm inspired by learning the new stuff along with them. So,
What's the worst business advice you've ever received?
almost everything connected with growing a small business. When I am my business, when my name is on the door, I can't automate and remove myself from the business because I am it. And this will probably lead into a book recommendation. A
Uh-huh.
lot of small business advice isn't great for expert-based businesses. But there is a book called The Thought Leader's Practice by Matt Church, which
Uh-huh.
is the infopreneur, expert-based practitioner where you and your expertise is the business. It's the blueprint for how to do that without being pushed down all of that small business, automate everything, get yourself out of the organization advice. So really, really good advice I got through Matt Church.
Okay, just jump into that then. What, other than the first minute effective emails and 39 ways to make training stick, what should people reach for with their keyboard on Amazon or wherever they buy their books from?
If you're a parent of a teenage or younger, read The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. At least become aware of some of the challenges and risks around the online world for children. If you're teaching a workshop, The Workshop Survival Guide by Rob Fitzpatrick is hands down the best book I've ever come across on how to deliver an engaging workshop on any topic. And if you work internationally, The Culture Map by Erin Mayer. Even just chapter 1 on communication will open your eyes and give you some really good methods. And then the one I mentioned before was The Thought Leader's Practice by Matt Church. So if someone is the business, they're not selling a product or a widget, it's their expertise. The Thought Leader's Practice is a phenomenal blueprint for how to succeed and grow an expert-based business.
Chris, that's magic. Thank you very much indeed for those. I say often now, if I only got book recommendations from doing the podcast, then it would be worth it for me. And so I haven't read any of those. That's fantastic.
Nice. Okay, yes.
Thank you very much. That's
You're
brilliant.
welcome.
Thank you very much for coming on and sharing your insight with us this morning.
Dominic, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you.